To be honest, I'm not like a person a mood of music. So, sometimes, of course, Arabic music, and it could be something, I feel it is nice. So I am
Right.
more in terms of my language, more than other languages. But of course, each language has its own beauty and it's unique in its own way, to present music, to be honest.
Of course, but you were born in Syria, weren't you? You grew up there and stuff. So, how does music differ in general? Would you say to anything that you've experienced in the UK? Is it wildly different, or what would you say?
Yeah, I think it is so much different. So Syria is like part of the Arab world. So basically, we have shared the music, which is not only for Syria, for example. And I think Syria is more in acting, especially drama, more than having better singers, for example. But we all share, singers from Egypt, from Iraq, from, the Arabic Gulf, for example, Saudi Arabia or other, countries. So all of them, we consider them the same, which is Arabic music. But of course, it is completely different to the UK or to Africa or India. So yeah, it has its own taste, if so to speak.
Yeah, of course. This just came to my mind now. Have you ever, used music as a means of, kind of conveying a political message or anything like that, or, something educational or anything, just out of interest?
Yes, I think in Syria, especially after the revolution started, they used the music as a way of expressing their demands, to express their feelings about what's going on, to express their anger sometimes about what was happening in Syria. So yes, the national music, which represents our nationality, it's really powerful in Syria. It is not only in music, but also in poetry. So poems are so powerful in the Arabic language that it is even from ancient times, they used poetry to express sometimes sadness, anger. If they want to criticize somebody, before they didn't criticize them just by normal words, they just present it in a poetry way. But of course, the music during the revolution, yes, it was really key and turning point of how people wanted to talk about their rights, to talk about the revolution, to praise the revolution, to say it is something good, to talk about the sacrifice of the Syrian people during that war. So yeah, that's such a great question. And yeah, it was really something powerful in the war.
Wow. I find it really interesting how the arts plays such an integral role, often in kind of political upheavals, or in certainly in like you were saying, in demonstrating kind of anger or demonstrating satisfaction at certain things. Or if we look at history in general, music and art in general has played such an important role in trying to change the minds of the people, or change the minds of governments, or something like that. So it's interesting. It's interesting what you're saying about it anyway. But okay, so I had a question that was just more in a general sense. Obviously, in 2017, you became a UNICEF ambassador. Can you, just for the sake of people kind of tuning into the podcast and whatever, could you tell me a little bit about your story, and can you say kind of how you became a UNICEF ambassador and all that stuff?
Yes, becoming a UNICEF ambassador, it has such a history before it, because basically I had to flee my homeland in Syria in 2013, and I lived in Jordan. In Jordan, we lived in refugee camps. At the beginning, I lived in Za'atari camp. It is called Za'atari camp. And then I lived in another camp. But basically, even before fleeing Syria, I always have been so passionate about education.
Yes.
I loved going to school. I have grown up in a family which is educated family. They all work in the field of education. For example, my dad is a teacher. I have my uncle and my aunts, all of them, in the educational system. So I saw the difference they can make in the society, and they always built all my dreams up in education, and I always wanted to learn as much as I can. But unfortunately, when I had to flee Syria, I thought it is the end of my learning journey. I thought maybe I cannot find education in a new place, like especially, a refugee camp. I thought there is no opportunity like that. So when we had to flee Syria, I only packed my school books because I thought these books will give me hope for the future, and if I didn't find education in the camps. So when I arrived to the camp in Jordan, it was a really tough life. But for me, my only concern was going to school, to find education, and the quality education, not only education, because in Syria we already have such a very, good educational system. Of course, I don't want to go to a place where I just, they want to teach writing and simple mathematics, which is something, I don't want, but I wanted equality education. So thankfully, I found the school, which is Jordanian curriculum. They teach, things like Jordanian students they are learning, which something made me so happy. But unfortunately, because many of the children around me, they have gone through really tough circumstances, they started to give up on their right to education. They thought, okay, I'm living in the camp, but it is not a priority to go to school. I will learn, for example, when I go back to Syria, or, for now I just want. Yes. So because especially at the beginning, no one thought the war in Syria will be extended like that. It will take such a, long time. And until now, we don't have a real solution for the war in Syria. So for me, I felt so sad to see kids like me who, lost their hope of learning. So I wanted to encourage them, to tell them that as long as there is an opportunity to go to school, we must go to school, because we don't want to lose a generation without education. And I know one day these children will go back to Syria, and we want them to go back with education, with knowledge, because if we don't have enough knowledge, we really cannot participate in building or rebuilding our country. So I started a campaign. I was going from 10 to 10, convincing parents, girls and boys to believe in education, and to know education is the only solution that we can have right now in order to have a brighter future for Syria. So since then, I started to do sometimes activities with UNICEF, Save the Children at the time, because all of them, they work for children and education. And I started to be a spokesperson on behalf of, children there, and UNICEF. If there is a delegation or if they have media comes to the camp. So I was speaking on behalf of the children, on behalf of the refugees, until I become, known day by day. And my activism work started to make real impact. So this is how it started. But at the beginning, it wasn't really official work with UNICEF. It was just, joining them in some campaigns and some activities. And then after 3 years of doing all these activities in the camps in Jordan, of course, we resettled in the United Kingdom. But here, I didn't give up, because I continued to speak, to share my story. I attended many events and conferences to talk about refugees, to share my story, to talk about education. So when UNICEF recognized that I'm still fighting for every child to go to school, they wanted me to join them as the Global Goodwill Ambassador. And at that time, I was the youngest and the first one who held refugee status to become an ambassador to UNICEF. And since then, I have been doing with UNICEF a lot of activities, either in the field in Chad, Mali in Africa, or in Jordan, or anywhere in the world, or I speak on behalf of children in any opportunity I have.
Right. That's, I mean, what, in terms of UNICEF's kind of input, obviously, because I'm, totally aware that it's not it's not you trying to become a part of UNICEF that has put you on your journey and has put you down the path that you're going. You have done that all by yourself, and then they have taken notice of things. So on what level do you think organized bodies like UNICEF or something like that. How important are they? Are they important? Do they help? Do they not help? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, of course, UNICEF and other organizations can really participate effectively in helping those who are in need. And what makes me really passionate about UNICEF, because it directly works with the children and it works for education, which is two things I am so passionate about. But
and
of
they have
course,
resources as well, of course.
Yes, of course. UNICEF works on a global level. It has, offices in many countries in the world, and especially they work in emergencies in countries, like Jordan, which has Syrians who come from conflict. They work in Africa, so in really sensitive and critical situations. I think, yes, of course, they contribute in such a positive way. But I always say, we cannot really make the hugest difference if we work alone, because we really need collective actions. And once we work together, of course, if UNICEF and other organizations and governments in particular, if really pay attention to the educational crisis, especially after COVID-19, then we can really make a progress rather than making, going backward in what we do. Because sometimes we really make a progress and then we have a crisis like COVID, for example. Before COVID, we had a lot of challenges for education. We had conflicts, we had poverty, we have many, many other issues that really prevent millions of children to go to school or to learn in safe environments. But COVID, it has worsened and deepened that crisis for the children. So what I think that governments, they really must put education on their top agenda rather than supporting war, for example. You should really give my resources to education.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if like the governments, their intention is just supporting war, making new conflicts, then we really will face a lot of challenges. So UNICEF is part of the international community, and to be honest, UNICEF, even if it does really such a great work, it really cannot alone make that difference. So in order to do that, honestly, we need to, especially governments, to work together and to take decisive actions in terms of education and ending conflicts, because I cannot, for example, solve the refugee crisis before solving conflicts like the ones that are happening in Syria or in Yemen or, in many parts of the world.
In many parts of the world, yeah.
Honestly, sometimes we say the refugee crisis is something really negative, something really difficult, we cannot deal with it. But if we look to the root causes, we see if there is no conflict in Syria, we don't have many Syrians, flee their homeland, for example. I just want to refer it to Syria because it is, I have a personal experience. So sometimes if we just solve those conflicts, or we try to do that, we can really end the refugee crisis and many other crises in the world.
Definitely. To what degree, obviously you're extremely passionate about education, and I come from education myself, from having taught. I have students of my own, and I teach on a daily basis, and then I do masterclasses for people, and some of that will be. Most of it for me is based in the music industry, and it's based on stuff to do with like learning and teaching music. But I've been sort of getting a few projects that are going around the world now, and they're going into sort of places like Kenya. They're going into places like you mentioned Jordan. There's places there as well, and lots of stuff all over the world. But it's all predominantly music based. What does education? What does good education mean to you?
I think it means the future, especially for the ones who are facing severe circumstances, because once they are empowered by education, they really can be independent and can really participate in solving the problems, because they know the children, especially young generations, what they need is just opportunities and to be equipped with the good skills, because they don't want to be just part of the problem, but they really want to be part of the solution as well. So I think education, especially equality education, really can make a huge difference in the lives of children, and it gives hope and gives them a brighter future.
Definitely. I sort of, I think of education, even just as teaching music, I see it as being, you know, education of any kind has to be, the point of it has to be surely ending conflict within yourself and within, you know, in the community as well, of course, you know, and otherwise, what's the point? Why are we doing any of it? You know, of course. So, how, you know, it's really difficult. I know from teaching people just, you know, how to play a guitar. It's difficult teaching people. You've obviously done teaching yourself. You continue to do it. You've done it in the most difficult of circumstances. How did you deal with adversity? How did you teach others to deal with adversity? How did you deal with it yourself?
Yeah, to be honest, we all have ups and downs in life. We cannot really be optimistic the whole day or our whole life. I think this is what makes us a human beings. But I think the only difference, how we deal with these challenges. If we think about the challenges, something will last forever, then of course they will affect us badly. But if we think about it, it is just something for a specific period of time, and then we will have good times as well, because either good or bad times, both of them, they will last anyways. But unfortunately, sometimes the difficult circumstances really affect us more, and they remain in our memory, in our, you know, way of life. But for me, I always look to the positive side. I always know there is something good will happen. I always try to think about the good things I have, to not take things for granted. I always think, for example, if I have, you know, a house, if I have a good school or a good university, if I have, you know, a degree, if I am safe, if I can access a lot of things that, you know, I like in my life, I think about the ones who really don't have access to them, and they can feel thankful and grateful about what I have. At this time, I don't take things for granted, and this really, you know, can keep me motivated and also thankful to the things I have, so I don't just you know, feel they are something I can, you know, have it forever. No, I can just think about the ones who are in worse situations, can really, you know, sometimes, of course, I don't like anyone to be in bad situations, but this motivates me to fight for them as well, you know, to always speak on their behalf, to be strong enough to represent them. Because sometimes if I have a voice, I feel so lucky that I have that voice. At the time, many, they do, you know, they are voiceless. They cannot really talk about their challenges. So as long as I have a platform, you know, I can talk about, you know, the challenges that is facing me and facing others. I think it is a huge responsibility, and I must be strong for them as well. Because when I talk about my own story, it is not only my own story. It would be millions of stories who are not heard in the world, and need somebody, you know, to represent them and to talk about their challenges. So for me, when I talk about something I have gone through, it is definitely not related to Muzoon alone. It is really related to anyone who can relate to that story, or to anyone who wants to understand the ones who come from conflicts or from really severe circumstances. You know, they have tough stories. That's why, you know, sometimes they need to change their country to live in another country, or, you know, to seek refuge, not only to hold negative, you know, perceptions. Because I think sometimes our, you know, the problem for many people, it is hear about others, they don't hear from them. So for example, if I hear about Syrians in the media, maybe I take a very negative perception, or, you know, I take a very negative image. But if I meet Syrians, or I hear, you know, the trajectory of their stories or what they have gone through, then I can relate as a human being. Then I can understand what pushed Muzoon, for example, to live in Jordan in refugee camps, and then come to the United Kingdom and build a new life, or to speak on behalf of millions around the world. So for me, as long as I have this platform, this really empowers me, because I consider it such a huge responsibility. But on the personal level, you know, I really can do many things to, you know, for me, I am really a positive thinker. Like, I always try to keep myself in a, you know, I think in a positive way, even in very bad situations. I always know there is an end and there is a solution to anything happens in my life. For example, when I have become a refugee and we have gone through really difficult circumstances, many people, I think most of people who really left their countries, they lost hope and they really didn't, unfortunately, they didn't continue their lives in a normal way. Of course, I don't judge anyone or blame anyone because it's really severe circumstances, but we will suffer anyways. But the only difference, either to stop and, we do nothing, or to keep going forward and to defeat these challenges, and we don't allow these challenges to be stronger than me. So for me, I never give up, because I always try to defeat the challenges. I always try my best, because sometimes maybe, many people who are talented more than me, they have better skills than me, but sometimes, just they give up because they have gone through really, tough experience. For me, even if I'm not good at anything, I always try to go forward, to do my best. And, I am stubborn in things, that I want in life. So I never give up no matter what, especially if this cause, I do it for many around the world.
That's amazing. I mean, how did you get to that state of mind? Is it, have you always been this way, Muzoon? Or is it something that, are you a product of your environment? Is it because of everything that happened in Syria that you sort of ended up with this kind of mind, some would say it's like, ultra positive mindset kind of thing. Is that something you've learned, or is that something you would say you are unique and you have this innate ability that you've always had this? Or, what would you say? Are you a product of parenting, or what would you say?
This is very interesting. Of course, I cannot describe myself unique or anything, because people who can really judge me on that.
Sure.
But for me, even before the war in Syria, even when I was young, I always stand for the things that I think it is right or wrong. I always, try to, to be myself, to get the best things I can get for my life. I remember sometimes even at the school before the war or anything, if somebody was treated in unjust way, I always try to fight for their rights. Sometimes if, some students bully other students, I always report that to, the head teachers, because, I don't like, somebody to be treated in unjust way or in a negative way. So I always like people to uplift others, to make them feel good about themselves and not to feel weak, even if they are in really difficult circumstances. So yes, I think since I was young, I was that way. I always, positive, try to, to not give up no matter what, to get what I want in life, and try my best. But of course, the war was also a key motivation for me, because that experience wasn't easy. So it made me even more but that time maybe I was standing mostly for myself. But after the war, I started to stand for others. So I think this is the key difference.
Right. It's interesting how, like, clearly adversity is something that has been it's affected you in hundreds of ways, and I can't even imagine. Yeah, but in terms of the positive ways, it's definitely been a force for motivation for you to sort of shake things up in the world and identify the things that are really wrong and and get on with trying to change them for the better, which is absolutely incredible.
Yes, because of course, go ahead.
No, please carry on.
Okay, no worries. Because basically, it is not my fault what happened in Syria. Of course, we didn't choose to suffer. No one of Syrian, people wanted this to happen to them. No one wanted their country, to be destroyed, or their loved ones to be killed, or to flee their homeland, because everyone loves his or her homeland, and it means something really special to them, and they only left or lost things just because they were forced to. No one has chosen that. So for me, as long as it is not my fault, I don't accept to lose my rights, or I don't lose to suffer, or I don't accept just to see that destruction of my country without doing anything for that. So for me, that made me really angry and sad at the same time to make those actions, because not only I don't accept for anyone to underestimate, for example, me, that because just I have become a refugee, because suddenly when I crossed the border with Jordan, I started to be named a refugee. So for me, some people think, to be a refugee is something really shameful. But for me, I think it is something I'm really proud of it, because it taught me things my life before the war didn't taught me. So I think sometimes suffering really can be an environment to discover ourselves, to know who we are, and to know, yes, the things that we do beyond our expectations. So for me, before the war, I didn't know I will be a voice for millions around the world, or to give them hope, or to inspire them. So these things, if I was in Syria, I didn't know, I am able to do that. Maybe I changed things for Muzoon alone, or for my own community.
Right.
But because I have gone through that experience and I didn't lose hope, I did things beyond my expectations.
Amazing. Yeah. It's fascinating to think that that sort of, out of a series of negative things, out of really negative stuff, you've completely transformed it into a positive, not only for yourself, but once you've taken on that mantle, that very intention to be more positive in your own life and try to help others and things is actively and actually doing those things. And, you're inspiring other people in to follow in your footsteps, which is incredible. What do you think of, there's a kind of an increasing amount of like mental health talk and chatter and things, particularly in education in the UK, yes, as I see it. What do you make of all that? I mean, because you're sort of talking as a person who's literally been living through war zones and refugee camps and all this kind of all this stuff. And there's obviously there's a number of students and things that I sort of want to go, guys, you've got it so good. Like, what's wrong? What do you make of it all? And do you have any comments about that?
Yes, I think this is really important because, many children, especially young people, they are facing such a really tough time nowadays, especially with social media. This made it worse for us as young people, because we see perfection, on social media, for example. We think what others are posting. I just refer to social media because I think it has the hugest, not only social media, but it has the hugest impact on us, in our current times. This is what I say it in my point of view. So if I see somebody post something on social media, I think, this is 24 hours, or it is how they are the whole time. I think they are not sad. They don't go through, bad moments. I think they are perfect. They are rich. They are better than me. So when we started to make these comparisons, this, even if unintentionally we do it, it really affects us in such a bad way. And I think young people, when they see that, they started to underestimate themselves. They don't have satisfaction about what they do, even if they are amazing. And I'm sure many of them, they do things better than the ones they see on social media. But unfortunately, because it is fake and it is presented in such a, beautiful way, with filters, with, we just make up on social media, they think they are not good enough. No matter what they do, they are open to millions around the world who maybe they score marks at the school better than them. They have money more than them, because girls, they see women, more beautiful than them. This started to make them feel really bad about themselves. So that's why mental health, I think it is really, really important nowadays, because we need to be careful how we treat young people and to really be close to them, make them empowered and motivated, because it is such a hard time. Honestly, all of us have, we have been really affected by that. And I think, unfortunately, there is sometimes a stigma about mental health, but I think now we all, started to go through harder times than before. Maybe before we have problems with, family or But now we are open to a larger platform, which really affects, us in such a bad way.
Of course.
So I think, mental health should be something really normal. As our bodies sometimes need treatment, also our mind sometimes needs that. We are mentally in need, because it is not easy. We are human beings. Anything can affect us. We cannot be perfect. No one is perfect anyway. So we can go through challenges, which I want young people to know it is normal. If you feel bad, if you do, give your feelings what they deserve. Of course, not to be in a state of sadness all the time or a state of happiness all the time, because give that feeling what it deserves, but don't make it to make you or to become you or to control you. Feelings are normal, I don't want to talk in a psychologist way, because I am not that, but this is my point of view. I think just, to live sadness if you're sad, but don't make that feeling, to control you. And it is okay to feel bad sometimes, because, we are human beings, and that's fine.
Yeah, of course. It's you should come and do masterclasses with me in schools.
I will still need more qualification.
Definitely. Do you play any instruments, by the way?
No.
we could. I'll give you a tambourine or something. That's okay.
Yeah, that would be really great if you have time. Last question, Muzoon. What are you working on now? What's happening for you now? Yes, so currently I just finished my master's in international relations, conflict and security. So my graduation is this month. I'm so excited to finish my master's at such a young age. I'm so excited for what's going on in the future. And currently I'm working with refugees and asylum seekers in the United Kingdom. I try, to support them, to make them settle well in the UK. So this is what currently I'm doing. And of course, continuing to do things with UNICEF and, such a global level. And yeah, I don't know what will happen in the upcoming years. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Muzoon, thank you so much for talking to me. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure. And it's really humbling to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Of course. Thanks, Ben. And regards to you and to the family and to the young
Yes, baby. Of course, definitely.
Of course. Talk soon. Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Muzoon.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy. Bye-bye. Bye.